The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Also just want to bring to everyone's attention the GoTo webinar software. You are kind of muted at the moment, so you won't be able to kind of talk to me. It is really just a kind of a listening exercise for this evening, but you will have the ability to kind of answer questions as we kind of go through tonight's demonstration. So within the GoToWebinar control panel, it might hide itself, but there should be a little kind of arrow that's kind of pointing into the corner of your screen. There should be a little kind of question box at the bottom of the control panel. Do please ask questions as we go through the demonstration, and towards the end we'll have a bit of a kind of a Q&A and hopefully kind of cover off any kind of questions you guys have about the software. So just to obviously we do get a bit of a kind of a mixed kind of audience at these demonstrations. Some of you might be kind of looking at the software for the very first time, or some of you might already be kind of using the software and kind of using this as a bit of a refresher. So we do try and kind of do these for those, or we try and pitch it as if you haven't actually seen the software before. So we will be kind of taking you through some of the kind of the basics and stuff to begin with, and then going into kind of creating a new job with the aid of some of the templates, and we'll certainly kind of have a look at those. Just before we do get in, just to kind of give everyone who hasn't maybe kind of dealt with us in the past or are really kind of using us for the very first time, HPXL, we're coming up to our 20th year, which is going to be next year. So we've been selling the software, developing and selling the software for the last 20 years. So we have got some good kind of pedigree, good kind of history when it comes to estimating software. It's a very popular bit of software, especially in today's market where you have to kind of get a quote out quite quickly to the client. You've got competitors as well that you're competing on certain jobs, and you want to make sure that you're actually giving the customer the quotation as and when you say that you're going to. It's either detailed and itemized as they want it. It's being presented on a very kind of professional quotation, and it's accurate, and making sure that the accuracy really reflects the job. From your point of view, you can then kind of determine whether or not the job's actually going to be profitable in the first instance to actually go ahead with the job. And I'll be showing you some of the tools and some of the information that you'll get from Estimator Express. So hopefully everybody can kind of see my screen. This is your kind of dashboards. This will be kind of listing your kind of recent work that you've been currently working on, so you can get to any of these estimates. So if a job is taking a little bit longer to kind of put together, you can save and kind of come back with it to it with maybe kind of fresh eyes and a fresh brain. Especially a lot of the builders that we speak to, they're kind of estimating into the wee small hours of the morning after a hard day on site or in the office. And estimating is a kind of an evening kind of thing to do. So this is going to kind of allow you to kind of pick and choose the times that you want to price. But saying that, you will be able to get through very kind of simple extensions and kind of new build work in a fraction of the time it kind of takes to kind of estimate, kind of using kind of pen and paper. Also as well on the dashboard, you'll see here we've got some kind of stats. Your kind of win ratio, depending on the status of the estimate, whether or not it's been won, it's actually in progress, etc. That will kind of tell you how well you're actually winning the work. How many jobs that need to be completed. So I've actually probably still got a few of these in a bit of a status where I haven't actually completed, and a bit of a pie chart for those that do like a bit of kind of stats and a bit of pie. Then you've also got jobs that's being estimated at the moment. On the left-hand side, you've got your kind of library of jobs, very similar to the recent work, but also on the library here, and just to kind of bring everyone's attention, whenever I do a demo, probably the number one question a lot of builders ask me is, where do we get our prices from? Within the library, that's a kind of a drop-down. I can go into the price books. Now, the software kind of comes shipped. It comes pre-installed with what we call the master price book. Now, if I drop the master price book down, it kind of breaks it down into these different sections. Material prices, labour prices, labour rates, plant costs, as well as any subcontract prices that you might want to apply to your project. Not everything can maybe be estimated, so we can put a kind of a subby in there if we're using a subcontractor, and any kind of sundry items as well that needs to be added to the estimate as well. If I just click on the material section, and then the material price list will appear. So this is the price book. It's been kind of done in alphabetical order by the type. So if I kind of click on that little button, that tells me I can actually filter to the different types of materials we've got. We've got kind of aggregate at the top. We've got stone, we've got block, we've got bricks, we've got carcass and timber, got decoration items, door items, all the way down through the alphabet down to kind of windows. All right, so we've got plenty of materials in here that you can kind of install the software this evening and actually do a kind of a new build estimate. There's enough materials in here to do everything that's going to be brand new kind of build, from the kind of the foundations up through DPC, up to the kind of brick, up to the kind of second floors, up to the roof section, and all the other kind of items as well that's going to be external. So if you are having to do the whole thing, all the landscaping or putting in kind of tarmac and drive, etc., this will be able to do it. So a lot of builders say to me, well, where does HPXL get their prices from? Now, what I'm just going to do is filter by my merchant, and I'm actually going to filter by what we call the HPXL price tracker prices. Now, these kind of price tracker price plus is HPXL's own kind of materials in the software. So we do actually give you materials for you to kind of start using straight away. Now, what we do as a company, being a software company, we've got developers and programmers, and what they've done, they've come up with a very kind of clever algorithm, kind of program that's kind of going around looking at online merchant prices online. So if you Google Travis Perkins, if you Google Jusons, if you Google Buildbase, they will have an online presence, they will have an online material. And what our kind of Price Tracker Plus does, it actually kind of collates those prices and works out an average. I mean, for example, here, I've actually got my building sand bulk bag. We've actually got that in there at around about £41 for a ton of sand. Now, I did a demo on the couple of guys who came into our office the other day, and they said they were probably paying between about £38 to around about £42, depending on the builder's merchant they're actually going to. So our kind of average on that material is around about £41, and all the rest of the materials are kind of worked out that way as well. Some materials we actually kind of give a list of different rates. So if I went to bricks, for example, you'll see here we've got a 40p brick all the way down through to a £1.50 brick. So you can choose the cost of the brick that you want to apply to the job very, very quickly. The actual default, whenever you do estimating in the software, we actually kind of default a brick anyway, which is an 80p brick. Now, you might be using an 80p brick, you might be using a 50p brick. You can change it according to the actual job. But that's the materials. Also, as well, on this kind of toolbar at the top, you've got a button here that allows you to kind of put a new resource in. Now, if I'm already on that particular material, that 80p brick, I'm already kind of highlighting it. If I click on new resource, what the software does is actually makes a copy of that material, and it's calling it a facing brick. So when it comes out on the quotation, it's being called a facing brick. So the customer, they're not going to get dazzled by the kind of technical kind of aspect of it. They know it's a facing brick. It's going into everything bricks above the DPC. And we've actually got a cost. Now, I can make a carbon copy of this. I can put that in it if I want to, 0.8699 if I wanted to. Oh, £8.69. Sorry, I was meant to put 89. So if we want to put that brick in at 89p, and we can then say, right, we're actually buying them in each. I can also put in, if I don't already have in this list, I can actually add a new merchant. I'm going to call it Brady Builders Limited. That's where I'm getting the material from. I'll click OK. That's my merchant now fixed in the software. We can also determine the delivery on those bricks. Now, if the delivery times are actually kind of extending at the moment because there might be a bit of a shortage on bricks, what you can do is actually put a delivery in weeks. Now, what that means is when you kind of estimate, the software will automatically create what we call a material order schedule, and that will tell you when you need to order the material depending on when you need that brick. So it will say if you need it on the 10th of April, and there's kind of 9 weeks for it to be delivered, then you're probably ordering it back in maybe the end of January, possibly the beginning of kind of Feb. So the software will actually then kind of determine when you need to actually buy the or order the material, so it's on site 9 weeks in advance before as the job's taking place. So there is some kind of project management aspects of the software that's kind of built in. We can also put in the VAT rates. We can also put in a wastage. So the software does also estimate for all your wastage kind of costs. So if you're kind of at a 5% wastage, when it does the ordering, it's going to order 5% more than what you actually require. So there is as I said, kind of some project management, some cost analysis components of the software. All right, and when we click OK, that's now put that brick in there for me to kind of use. It's just that I'm kind of filtering. If I wanted to look at Brady's Builders as my merchant, there's my cost. Now you'll notice as well, it's in red, which means that as an indication when we look at my price book, everything in red are items that I've actually put into the software myself. All right, so just a small indicator on there. Also, one of the other features of the software is the ability of linking in with the, if I just take out all my materials, and what I'm doing, I'm actually filtering by trade point. Now, you might use them, you might not. Depends on whether or not there's one local to you, and they're quite good on prices. But it just kind of demonstrate the software does link in with a number of builders merchants. TradePoint being one of them. I've got a list of materials from TradePoint in there. You'll notice as well this is actually live. So the building sand is around about £34 a tonne. We can also link in with Travis Perkins. We have that kind of merchant link with them, and Travis works a little bit differently, where what we'll do is we'll actually link it live to your own account. So it will actually bring in discounts from Travis and populate the software in the discount column. So what it will do, it'll bring in the list price of the material, it will bring in your discounts, and then what it will then do is the actual purchase cost will obviously be the list price less the discount will be your kind of purchase price. So Travis is one of them. We also use Keyline, and we also link in with a windows and doors company called Crystal Direct. Now, some people have heard of them, some people haven't, but Crystal Direct, I'll show you these guys. They're the actual manufacturer of the windows and the doors. They actually do supply nationwide, and they also supply, they're the national supplier to TradePoint. So if you've bought any kind of windows and doors through there. But I'm just going to put in my postcodes, BS169LN. So we're down here in sunny Bristol. So Crystal actually supply in my area down here. They're actually supplying the likes of Kellaway, which is a local merchant to us. They're actually supplying Build Base in Chippenham. They're supplying TradePoint in Chippenham, but within Bristol itself, they are actually supplying some local merchants, as well as kind of TradePoint, as well as Bradford's, which is a kind of I think it's a local merchant to us as well. But they're also supplying the likes of Build Base nationally as well. All right, so they're actually making the kind of windows and doors. So what they're actually their kind of business model is, rather than kind of you guys going through the third party to get the materials, get the supplier of the windows and doors. You're going direct to the actual supplier, and you're kind of getting the windows and doors at kind of cost. And I'll show you that once we kind of create the job. So that's the material price book. Very similar to the labour price book. All you've got to do is click on the labour price book. Now, these kind of gangs here, it's all kind of sectioned out into specific gangs. 2 and 1 gang, 4 and 2 gang, individual brickie. So the individual brickie in our software, as a kind of a guide, price is around about £25, and the actual software breaks it down by the hour. All right. So obviously, if they're £25 an hour, a 2 and 1 is going to be 65, because the brickie's mate's in there at £15 an hour. Now, again, you've got the ability of kind of changing these if you want to. I can select those ones, I can edit that resource, and if I want to, I can increase my prices by 10%, and then you'll see here very, very quickly my 2 brickies and a mate have actually gone up to £71.50 an hour. So if you are doing kind of work in an area that might have a bit more of an inflated kind of labour cost, you can very, very quickly change the labour hours to suit if you don't want to kind of go through and change them all. What you can also do as well is you can actually carbon copy the master price book. I can make a direct copy of the master price book. I could then fix my labour price book on that particular one to say be a 10% inflated adjustment. So I could pick that price book if we're actually doing a job in an area where we know it's about 10% more than what my kind of standard price book costs are. All right, so very, very quickly you can then kind of start estimating with a slightly more expensive a labour book. And the same goes for, you can put a minus figure in there as well if you want to. Again, if I kind of copy these ones, right click and edit resource, I can actually take that down to a minus 10% if I want to. I'm just going to kind of take it back to 0 and then just kind of keep that as it is. All right, so that's all kind of back to normal. Plant as well. If you need an item, it's in here. Skip ramps, lifts, cherry pickers, down to air breakers, all the way down to your skips. So you've got pretty much slab cutter, shovel, whatever you're going to use on a job, the software has got it in there. All right. So what we've also got down here as well, another kind of section to certainly probably the second question when we're doing a demo, is the kind of overhead, profit and inflation. So you can set whatever your own kind of business overheads are. So kind of office costs, marketing costs, telephone costs, whatever your kind of overhead is, you can work out what your percentage is you're kind of paying. And what we can then do is actually put into the software a clear profit that you want to kind of make on each job. I've got 20% with a 10% overhead. So my total markup on any job I estimate is going to be 30%. All right, that's what I've kind of got. Now, I speak to lots of builders on a day-to-day basis. They're kind of telling me they're probably quoting or marking up maybe 10 to 15, if not 20%. But you got to kind of realize, I mean, certainly kind of profit, you've got to kind of take into consideration your kind of overheads and stuff, and then your kind of clear profit. I do even have some builders who probably don't know what they're actually making on the job, and especially in today's market. I was speaking to a builder today. He's kind of tendering for work, and he's getting undercut from around about 20 to 30k. On a job, and he's asking, well, where are they kind of shaving that off if my estimate is going to be X? So it's a very competitive market. It's making sure you've got a competitive edge, but it's also as well kind of saying to the client, this is the actual cost of the job. This is how much is going to go into it, and why would you be doing a job if you weren't going to make any money off the back end of it? I mean, if you're just kind of working for nothing, it's kind of not the way forward. So on here, you can really kind of control what the costs are. You'll notice as well in this section here, we've actually got an inflation rate. So this is very important, especially if you're tendering for a job. I mean, I did a demo on a guy the other day. He said the job wasn't going to be starting until probably February, maybe March time. Well, by the time we start building, you're guaranteed that prices have gone up, and especially with Brexit just round the corner, whether or not we're in or out. If we're out, then there might be, from what the government tell us, maybe a shortage in materials if they're coming in from the EU. So making sure that any kind of inflation, any kind of shortages are kind of taken into account. So we can put a 2% inflation on there. It means that when it starts building, hopefully nothing's going to be kind of too more expensive. And you can then say, you can pass that on to the client as well. Say, look, even if kind of materials do change later on down the line, we've kind of factored that into our estimate, so you're not going to get charged anymore. Because I mean, I'm sure the customer is going to be very unpleasant once we kind of get into the job, and all of a sudden we start putting in the invoices and stuff for more than what we actually originally kind of quoted for. And you can delay that 2% on the job as well by a number of weeks. So if it's going to be starting in February, you might want to kind of delay that by about 1 week, or if it's starting quite quickly, it could be about 8 weeks or so into the job, just to allow for any inflation 8 weeks into it. So hopefully that all kind of makes sense. All right. Also as well, just to kind of link in with the price book, if you do decide that you want to link it in with the a builder's merchant, what you can do, you can actually go into favorite merchants. I've actually got TradePoint as my favorite. So what that does, it actually kind of pulls in the TradePoint materials as default for my estimating. If you did have TradePoint or Travis or anyone in here, you can actually set them as favorite, and they'll always kind of choose those materials for you to when you're doing your estimating. Excellent. Right, so that's a bit of an overview of some of the library items. What I'm now going to do is go back to my dashboards, and I'm actually now going to create a job. So jobs come in. I need to kind of price it up. So what I'm going to do, this button here, very, very straightforward. We're going to create a new job. So all we do is click on that button. Now we get these kind of 4 options. We're actually going to be doing this first option here, where it's is quoting from one of our templates. The templates are kind of already, I guess, been drawn for you, and they'll make sense once we kind of go in there. So if the job kind of fits one of the templates, then certainly kind of use the template. All right. Now, if the job doesn't fit the template, it's got a bit of a weird shape, or it's got a few kind of angled corners, or had a guy doing a demo the other day. It was going to be a single story extension, but on the first floor, because there was a part of building like a garage type underneath, and then it was all going to be kind of timber frame, and then we had a bit of a kind of a slate roof. So there was a bit more of a kind of a custom side to it. So what we actually did was you actually use this kind of option here, where what you can then determine, you can actually put in your own kind of wall lengths, etc. So this is more for if you're doing more of a kind of a bespoke job, or if you're actually doing a renovation job, you can kind of use this particular template here. We're not doing the plans expressed tonight, but we do actually have, for those that may be using it, who may are looking into it, we do have a kind of a standalone CAD system called Plans Express, which allows you to do 2 things. It allows you to kind of do a trace over of an existing PDF plan, and then you can import the plan into Estimator Express, and it will do a takeoff directly from the PDF. Or you can actually do your own designs, and say the customer wants a nice little kind of simple extension or new builds. You can kind of do a very kind of detailed kind of plan, and again you can import it in and kind of estimate it from your own kind of drawing. So there is that kind of option, but we're not going to be showing that one this evening. Now this kind of bottom option, it's a bit more of a kind of a legacy option. As I said, we've been selling this software for the last 20 years. The software did go through a bit of a change probably about 2 or 3 years ago about its kind of method on how you approach the job before the templates came in. So this was like how people used to kind of estimate before. So we're not going to be touching on this one, but it is kind of in there for those that might have been kind of using an old version of our software over the years. So what we're actually going to be doing is we're actually going to be doing this kind of a quote from a standard job template. So all I need to do is click on that section. Now what it's going to do is kind of throw up the actual templates for me. So these, if I make that a little bit bigger, just maximize that screen. So what I can do here, I can actually filter on the top section. I can filter by houses. So these are our kind of house templates. So again, as I said, if the plan matches this kind of template, and we've got different variations, different kind of connotations of the plans. We've got apex roof house with a hip, valley roof double-story projection coming off, or we've got this type of shape where we've got a bit of an apex roof going on with one apex valley roof double-story projection here, and then we've got a lean-to coming off as well. Or we've got this one where it's a little bit more of a kind of a, and then we've got this extra kind of projection coming off the side. Or if we've just got a bit of a square apex roof house, we can choose that one. We've also got bungalows, so single stories, and then we've got the extensions. All right. Now the extensions kind of range from apex valley single story extensions. We've got this one here. We've got a bit of a valley going on. So just that's an apex roof. This one's got a valley going on. Got a hip valley as well. Got a hip abutment. Lean-to single story extension, very popular. I'd probably say 80% of our demos were probably showing that particular kind of template in there, just because that's what a lot of jobs are being done. Or we're probably getting a lot of these kind of flat roof ones. So if you've kind of got a bit of a kind of a flat roof one going on, you can kind of drop that in there as well. Corner infills, and then we've also got these corner kind of apex ones as well. We've got a kind of an L shape, or it might be coming off a part of the section. Okay, so just to kind of make it really nice and simple to see, I can choose any of these, by the way. Oh, we've also got these conservatories as well. So if you are building a conservatory, the glass is all kind of linked to crystal. So we've got like a gable kind of conservatory there. We've got a bit of a kind of a lean-to kind of conservatory coming off there. So what I'm going to do is keep it nice and simple this evening. I'm going to choose a lean-to single-story extension. Now you'll notice there as well, it's got a bit of a brick finish going on. Now what I can do, just up here on the toolbar, I can change that to a render finish. So when the template gets loaded, it's going to load it as a kind of an external block rendered wall, or it could be that you're actually doing it in stone. I'm just going to keep it for brick. Just again, keep it nice and simple this evening. So I'm going to click on the lean-to single story extension. Now it just takes a few seconds to load. The reason being is it's actually kind of loading with some standard kind of plan sizes or kind of template sizes. So it is actually going to come in with a bit of a kind of a starter cost, and I'll explain a little bit more about that in just the second. Should be coming in now. So this is the job coming in now. So this is our kind of template here. It's loaded. As I said, it's going to be a lean-to single story extension. This is for kind of illustration. This isn't what's going to be the finished product. You're going to determine what kind of windows and doors you're going to put in, but this is really just to kind of give you a bit of an elevation view. We've got our kind of plan view here. So this is the red is obviously going to be the new stuff. We've got an existing wall we're actually building the extension off. Now you'll notice there we've got a price, a running cost, just over 17,184. That's because it's already kind of estimating a 3x6 meter extension. Now you can change that obviously if you want to put 4 meters in there. It's now going to make that change, and you'll see here it's now bumped the price up to 21,185. And also as well for the length, I'm going to put an extra meter on the length. And again, if we kind of watch that, it's then going to now bump up to 23,380. So every time I make a change to the estimate, anytime I make a change to any of the dimensions or any of the elements, you'll see here that job cost kind of sticks at the top. Okay. Now, if I kind of scroll down, this kind of section underneath has got some kind of defaulted kind of items already in here. The ceiling height, for example, 2.4 meters high. It's given again. You can change it if I want to change that to 2.5 meters. Put an extra 100 mil on top of the, and then that should change there. And also as well the pitch. The pitch has been set to 45 degrees. Again, if you need to kind of change the pitch accordingly based on the estimate or the plan that you've got, change the pitch in there. What it's also doing as well is any kind of single skin walls or any kind of cavity walls we place, it's actually giving me a depth of the foundations is going to go around to 900 mil. All right, and 900 mil for any single skin internal walls we do as well. Tile length is going to be 300 mil. The soffit width to the eaves downstairs are going to be 200 mil, and the soffit width to the gables downstairs are going to be 150 mil. All right. Now I can change any of those elements. I'm going to keep them as they are. I'm going to scroll down here. Now what the software is giving me is it's actually giving me the specification for this particular job. Because I'm doing an extension, it's automatically selecting an extension specification. I didn't go into it too much on the library because I wanted to kind of explain a little bit more once we were kind of in the job. Basically what the specification does, and I'm actually going to change some of it, so I'm going to go into edit specification and I'll show you what this is doing. So the specification is actually saying to the software, right, if you're doing any kind of external wall brickwork, this is the material from your price book you're actually going to use. Now, if I wanted to, it's defaulted to use an 80p brick. I can do two things. I can change it here. I could put in a slightly kind of more expensive brick if I want to. Let's say we want to kind of put in a 90p brick. Or I could have, in the library, I could have actually gone into my extension specification in my library and actually changed the cost of the brick to 90p. So every time that we do an extension, we're always going to choose a 90p brick. So you can make that kind of change as and when you need to. All right. The roof tile, we're actually going to be using a plain tile. Now we can change, as I did on a demo the other day, we were going to be using a slate tile for the roof. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to change the section for the roof tiling. Same for the guttering. The extension specification is actually assigning a plastic gutter to it. But if I want to, if the clients maybe turn around or the plans determine that we need to use a slightly different one, we can maybe kind of use a steel rectangular gutter, and we can maybe do that as a kind of a 75mm downpipe. If we're doing any kind of flat roof estimating on our job, we can change the waterproofing. So we could be having basic felt with a torch on, EPDM, we could be doing fiberglass, could be doing another system, maybe a technology that you guys have maybe kind of found a different company do. Could be plastic, or it could be a premium torch rather than a kind of a basic torch. So you can kind of change, if you're doing a flat roof section, you can change the waterproofing there. Barge boards, they're probably going to be plastic, from what I remember in the specification. But if we're actually doing any kind of softwood barge boards and they are going to be decorated, we could put that in there. But it is going to be using that kind of plastic one there for those. Decoration, maybe the clients turn around and say that they want to do the decoration. You can say to the software, We're not doing any decoration through the course of the job, just the plastering. The client's going to do the decoration. Or you could be doing everything, so leave it in there and it all gets kind of decorated. Now, this particular extension, we could be going to the site, we could be investigating the site, and one thing jumps out: we can't get any plant in to actually dig out your trenches. So what you can do is you can actually change the extension specification default mini digger, and we can actually do that as a manual labour dig instead, because you just can't get, it might be we've got a bit of a gap at the side of the building, or we might have to come through the house to actually kind of make the to build the extension. So we're going to have to change that to a manual labour dig. All right. So if I leave that in there as a manual labour dig and then click OK, now what the software is now going to do is recalculate that based on what my changes were just doing. You can see that we haven't really increased it that much because of the some of the items we've kind of put in and put out, and then that's the now kind of estimated that job with that small change. Okay, that's completed. So the first section that we actually get to, the software actually presents to us when we're estimating, is going to be my kind of external walls. Now, it's not just doing the walls, and I'll show you why. If I go into that section there where it says DIMS, it actually stands for dimensions. All right. So do you remember we said that the software was going to be a 2.5 meter high wall? So it's already picked that up. It's picked up the 15 meters in length. So that's the total length of the main walls. The area of opening has been set to 0, and it will be 0 until I actually add any windows or doors. And then what the software will then do, it will then recalculate the area of opening for me. It's already kind of estimating up the gable. The gable that we're kind of focused on is this lean-to section. So the kind of A and the B is actually going to kind of put in a dimension for the height and the width. The next page, so as I said, it's not just about the kind of brickwork above DPC. What the brick and block cavity wall is also doing is actually doing your foundations as well. So it's actually kind of doing the depth of your trench, the width of your trench, the concrete fill, whether or not you're actually going to plank and strut the excavation, and also as well whether or not you've actually going to factor in the bulking of the material you're actually going to excavate out the ground. It's obviously going to be loose. It's going to be it's going to bulk up from when it starts coming out the ground. So that's automatically going to be estimated by disposing it in a skip. So the software has already been programmed to dispose of the excavated material. Software is also doing is the footing. So we've got the trench. This is the section through the foot, and we've got our kind of wall going in there. And again, our kind of dimensions in here, you're looking at a 150mm for the splash course depth, 75mm for the brickwork depth below the splash course, 225mm for the height of the blockwork to outer leaf below the actual DPC. We've also got the cavity fill depth below top of the DPC. So this has all been programmed into the software. You're not having to kind of enter any details in here. It's already been kind of programmed in. Is the main wall insulated? Is there going to be a separate DPC? Well, of course there is. And then last but not least is actually going to be the plastering and decoration for the internal leaf. So it's done the external leaf, it's done the brick and the block work, and also the internal leaf. It's actually then kind of done the internal block work. And what it's doing is actually plastering the block work. You got a yes for that. You're actually decorating the block work. Yes, we are. It's also putting a skirting board in, so it will estimate from the internal dimensions how much skirting you're going to need. It will also estimate the fixings as well, to actually fix the skirting to the wall. And it will also then estimate for the priming and decoration of that skirting board once it goes on as well. Okay? So that's what's kind of going on here under what we call the dimensions. And I can change the wall width here, and you'll see there it does change, and we can also change the cavity width as well. It does default it to 340, 140 because it's assuming that you might have to kind of comply with Part L building regs if you're actually kind of depending on over the size of the actual foot area. So that's that. What we've also got as well is we've got a button that allows us to go in and check the resources. It will check how much concrete you're going to need and what the costs are. It will kind of check each kind of item the engineering bricks for the use in the splash course, and it's going to tell you how many bricks you're going to need. Bricks above the DPC. So do you remember that 90p brick I said I was going to be using? That's the 90p brick it's actually using from my list there. At this stage, I can change it back to an 80p brick. And basically, the way the software kind of works out the cost, as in this cost here, is there's a kind of a calculation really kind of embedded and being programmed into it. And the calculation goes as such. If you're actually doing bricks above the DPC less any openings, the resource we're actually using from our price book is going to be a facing brick with a cost of 80p. Now, if that cost is 80p, the software is then working out how many bricks you're actually using over 1 square metre. So we're using 60 bricks over 1 square metre. Now, the size of this job, based on my dimensions, is actually 44.96 square metres. Now, if that's the case, how many bricks we're going to need, including wastage of 5%, is 2,832 bricks. All right. Without the wastage, it's actually 2,697, but we're popping on 5%. Because every time you do that kind of element, it's a simple calculation. 60 times 0.80 is £48 per square metre. So every time you do bricks above the DPC, it's charging £48 per square metre. And that's how it works out that cost of that job. And the same goes for the labour. I'm going to switch this to the labour. We're actually laying the bricks above the DPC. We're actually using, and I'm just going to go into it, we're actually using 2 brickies and a mate to actually do that. They're £65 if you remember from my price book. And again, we've got this kind of estimated rate. It's £39 per square metre. Because what we're actually working out, it takes an hour for that gang to actually do 1.66 square metres of laying bricks above the DPC. That's a kind of a standard kind of a labour allowance and rate. Now, obviously in the real world, we know how our gangs are, we know how fast they are, we know whether or not they do a good job and the quality, etc. I can change that. I could actually say, well, they're a little bit faster than that. By the way, just to go back into that, that's saying it's going to take about 26 hours or 27 hours for them to actually cover a job that's 44 square metres. Now, if I want to, I can actually change that to 2 square metres every hour. Now, that means that it's going to reduce the amount of time, obviously, which means it's going to reduce the amount of cost. So we've got the flexibility of factoring in what our real-time allowances are on a job. So out the box, installed for the very, very first time, it's already kind of got this this rate in here, so there's nothing really for me to change. As you kind of get to use the software and you get to understand its principles and you want to make a change, you can then start kind of maybe kind of tweaking the software to how you want it to be, and then it can get very, very accurate if you can put in what the actual labour gangs are actually working to. Then it will then kind of work out how many hours, how much the cost is on a job, etc. And that goes for everything: fixing cavity insulation, laying the blocks above the DPC, laying the coursing block if you've got any. What else we got? Fixing the skirting boards. And again, I can change it from looking at the material, and I can change the material. It's actually using one of my trade point prices because I use them as my kind of default. We're actually using a bit of Taurus there from trade point. So we can kind of edit that, and we can also look at who's laying it. So fixing the skirting is going to be probably my joiner's mate who's actually doing that. They're in there at £15 an hour. And again, the software has actually been programmed to allow for an hour for that particular gang to actually do 4.5 metres of fixing kind of skirting board. So that's going to take roughly just the 3.5 hours or so. Okay, so hopefully that kind of makes sense. As I said, if you have any questions, do feel free to kind of whack them on the kind of question and panel. But this is kind of a little bit more kind of behind the scenes. But what I kind of just really wanted to kind of demonstrate is just how flexible the software is for you to kind of make the changes once you're in a job. and reflect those changes in your price. Also, it gives you a bit of kind of confidence to think how the software is estimating and how it's coming up with the price that it does. Because I guess I could just say, well, yeah, 21,259. Well, where does that kind of come from? So hopefully that kind of makes a little bit of sense where it kind of comes from. The only thing from your end is just telling the software what the wall widths and the cavity widths are, and the software will pretty much kind of do the rest for you. Once we're quite happy with the external walls being done, we can click complete. That means that section disappears, and that's all done. It's a bit of a checklist. I know in my mind that's the sections that we've actually already priced on, and then we can go on to the next section. So the next section under the external walls is going to be my floor. So the defaulted kind of floor it gives me is going to be an extension slab, which is just ground bearing, and the thickness of the slab is 100 mil. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to change that to a ground bearing insulated and reinforced floor instead. Now you do also have options down here, beam and block, insulated or uninsulated timber floors, but I'm going to kind of stick to the extension slab, and I'm going to insulate and reinforce it. So again, just to show you, price has gone up. I'm going to also just make that a little bit thicker, take that to about 125. Now going in again, going into the dimension side of it, is now giving me the total area of slab we're going to lay, 25.6 square meters based on the extension size. And also as well, because we said we're going to do perimeter insulation, it's already then kind of estimating 14.4 meters of perimeter insulation. It's also going to be estimating top and bottom reinforcement, and it's also estimating is the slab going to be kind of float finished. And what it'll also do is give you some allowances excuse me, on the plant required, so the excavator, the plate compactor, the wheelbarrow, shovel, bolt croppers, concreting vibrator, power float, and collections as well, deliveries. So that's the slab done. I'm going to change that back to 125. And we can also determine whether or not we're going to do a floor screed. So this is actually doing a floor screed with a mesh and insulation. It might be that we're actually doing it with mesh and perimeter insulation only. So you can kind of determine, and you can also kind of say it's not going to be required. Maybe we're not doing any kind of screeding on top of this one. So the resources and the changes is really kind of down to you. And then once you're done, press complete, and then we're pretty much into the kind of roof. So it kind of takes you through from top to bottom the different sections that you want to estimate using the kind of template. So you can pretty much kind of do any of this as you kind of go. What we're also doing in here as well is this is going to be the roof. So with the roof, we can then do either a cut or a truss. We're going to stick with a cut. You can then say whether or not you're actually going to do, you're going up to a flat ceiling, or whether or not you're actually going up to the rafters. Okay, so if we're doing a bit of a vault, we're actually going up to the rafters. And again, if I want to, I can sense check it. I'd probably suggest doing this certainly on the first few estimates you do. But what you probably then find is once you kind of get used to the allowances and what it's actually doing, you'll be able to then not worry about kind of going in here too often. So this is going to be our lean-to roof. It's just pointing out my purlins, rafters, wall plates, joists, soffits, all these different kind of sections. It's already kind of picking up the clear span of joist based on the extension size we've already told it. It's also picked up that pitch of the roof that we suggested. It's also then estimating the purlins, binders, fascias, timber and roof strap details. So all this is already kind of been programmed into the software for it to use. You can make changes as and when you want to go. This is then giving you your kind of eaves length, your joist sensors, your rafter sensors. It will also estimate your guttering. How is your guttering being supplied? Also as well, your kind of fixing sensors, your downpipe fixing sensors. And then it's also you're looking at your tiling and insulation details, length of abutment, spacing your tile lath, which we already kind of told the software was what we were going to do. These diagrams are for illustration. You'll see here we did see where we're going up to the rafters. So what it's doing, it's saying that there's going to be no insulation to the ceiling, but we're actually insulating up to the rafters. All right. And it's also estimating up the tiling. So it will take that area and then work out the tiles. And it does that by, again, going into resources. We said we were actually going to use a slate tile. So the slate tile is going to be over here. By clicking on tiles, we've now got a kind of a natural slate tile in there. Okay. And again, if the tile doesn't, it's a little bit more expensive. Maybe the client's actually kind of picked a bit of Welsh slate tile or something, which is quite popular at the moment. What I can actually do is I can actually do from within the job. I can then kind of add, if I want to, I could even do Welsh natural slate tile. I can even kind of have that on the quotes as Welsh natural slate tile. I'm going to change that one as well. And let's say it's a little bit more expensive. It's maybe about £2.10 each. And we're kind of getting that from a Welsh slate tile company. Welsh Tile, we'll call them. Click OK. Delivery on that's 4 weeks because their area and when they do deliveries. Wastage, might want to take it down to 2%. We know we don't want to waste too much. Got to be very careful with that one. And then that's going to estimate. You're actually going to use 24.6 of these tile sizes for every square metre that you lay. So based on this job, it's actually going to cost £1,851 with a 2% wastage, 881 tiles you're actually going to use across this job, but it's got that kind of rate built into it. So at this stage, I can make that change very, very quickly within the job. So there is a lot of flexibility built into it. So that's the roof done. We can also kind of form openings. So obviously we've got this existing wall here. We could actually say we're actually going to knock an opening into that particular wall. We can do a large size opening. Just got the one opening, and we can actually extend that size to about 4.2 meters across onto the existing wall. It's then going to ask how many bricks, etc. you're going to need at each end. Slates required for packing. Bulking factor, it's actually going to bulk up by 2. Obviously, it's going to be a bit more off the kind of blocks and the bricks that are going to kind of come out that gap. It's going to be a little bit more kind of bulked up. The thickness of the wall we're actually kind of taken out is going to be 300 mil, and it's actually then going to plaster around the opening that we formed. You'll see is there as well. We've actually got our kind of lintels. It's estimating as well. So again, if I go into my dimensions, I'll go along to the lintels. It's then kind of choosing that particular lintel for the job. If we needed to choose a different lintel, again, I can maybe kind of copy that one, and I can put a different size lintel if the structural engineer's recommendation is a slightly different kind of RSJ. I can kind of put that in there, and then you can put the cost per meter in there as well, so you can change that up. Okay, so that's the opening done, and again, we can press complete and then move on. What it's also going to do as well is actually going to plaster to the existing connecting wall. So where these kind of walls are kind of connecting, what it's going to do is actually going to plaster and skim the interior of the existing wall and actually replace any skirtings. And on the external side, it's actually going to plaster and skim the exterior of the existing wall, and then again add kind of skirtings. So that's been done. Any kind of external doors. So this is where we're actually now going to put in and kind of mention kind of Crystal Direct earlier on. So we can actually put in some aluminium bifold doors from Crystal. If they are kind of popular, we can put in the number of kind of doors. We can put in the widths. You can put in the U values. You can put in the color. So if it was going to be, say, nearly a 4 meter wide door, we can put in the color. We can put in, so that price there is the price you'll actually get that door through Crystal Direct. So that is a live price. All right. So we can select that door, select the lintel, and we can also select the cavity closer that they'll provide. And then we can say how many doors have we got. And then we've got the door in there. Now, because we've put the door in there, if I was to go back up to my external walls, what the software then does is automatically recalculates the area of opening. So now it's going to take away the brick. So sometimes when you kind of put the door in, the actual figure doesn't go up as much as you think it's going to, just because it's then kind of taken away a number of bricks away from the estimated walls. Okay, so that's the kind of door. Now, if you don't particularly want to use crystal, you can just use our kind of bifold door in the software. It comes in with a bit of an allowance. You can then put in your own kind of door costs from your own suppliers. So you're not kind of linked directly to crystal. If I kind of went into resources here, it would actually allow me on the door section to kind of change the door on here. So we've actually got an aluminium bifold door there for £2,000. Now I can kind of go into my new resource and I can change that. I can change the cost. Maybe we're getting it from our own suppliers at £3,000, not 30,000. And we can put our own kind of windows and door supplier in there if we want to. All right, and then we can put that in as kind of a cost, and that will change that to £3,000. So that's our £3,000 door, and that's now closed. All right. So you can use just the stock windows and stock doors in there. Same for the windows. I can use the crystal windows if I want to. Again, it will go to the picker. We can choose the style. Might just be some centre bars. We can say what the widths are, what the heights are, and then what the colour is. And then we've got that one there, 220 against 355. Choose the lintel, choose the cavity closer, and then we can choose how many windows we've actually got. Okay, so they're now complete. Roof window, so we can put in some Veluxes. So we're doing a bit of a vaulted ceiling. So I'm going to put in some centre pivots, manual opening, 1.14 wide, 1.4 in height. They're white painted with extra low energy glass. Now that price there, the $599, is actually coming off the Velux window website. All right, but if we're getting it any cheaper, we might have our own suppliers. I can change that to $499 if that was the case. And then the software will say how many have you got. Maybe we've got 3 that's going in there. And what that will then do is actually form openings into the roof, and then it will take away the amount of bricks, the slates that we're not going to require. Now, depending on how you're actually estimating this job, you might have some kind of partition walls in here. You might not have any partition walls. It might be a bit more kind of open plans, as a lot of popular kind of extensions are at the moment. If you are going to do any internal walls, you'll see here you've got a choice of internal cavities, internal single skins, or stud walls. These are all kind of set to 0, so nothing's been estimated at this stage. Unless you put a length in there, that's the only time it will kind of price up. And you'll see here it automatically then kind of does that. But if you haven't got any kind of walls, internal walls, just press complete. If you haven't got any kind of sleeper walls you're doing, again, it's all set to 0, just press complete. Internal doors, if you are placing any internal doors, depending on what kind of walls you're actually constructing internally, you can put the size of your doors in there. You've got fire doors, and you've also got typical kind of panel doors as well. You can also set out the rooms. So if this was going to be a nice big family room you're building for them, so what we can do is we can actually spec out the size of the room. It kind of defaults it to about 3.8. I think our walls was about 7 meters long, so we could say it's about 6.5 by about 3.85 wide, 2.5 metre high wall. I can also link any openings, so I can link the bifold door to it. I can also link our kind of two windows, so that will then kind of form the openings. And we can also add some electrical items to this as well. We're actually doing a living space, and then what it will then do is, based on that size room, it's now given me a couple of ceiling roses, 3 light switches, 2 wall lights, and 3 double sockets. We also have the double sockets with USB sections, so maybe we're doing those, and we're kind of getting rid of the standard kind of double sockets. We're going to use the one with the USB. It's also got a TV point in there as well, and we can also add a group of plumbing items for this room. So it's going to be a kind of a family room. So it's going to give a family room kind of pipe feed based on that size. So if I scroll down, we've now got our kind of gas pipes, horizontals, verticals, as well as a radiator, as well as kind of radiator tails. It is going to do a gas fire. Might be we're not got a gas fire in this one, so what I want to do, I just want to delete that from my job. So we've actually then kind of created that family room, added electric and plumbing items very, very quickly, and then we can move on. It does have the kind of plastering sections here. This is, bear in mind, anything new that we're building will all be kind of plastered and decorated anyway. This is really if we're actually doing any, maybe while we're there, we're actually doing some remedial work to an adjoining room where we're actually replastering it. So what you can do is you can do a complete room plaster. The software says, do you want to use a room tool? Yes, I do. I'm going to add a new room. It's going to be an L-shaped room off the side, and the actual room is actually going to be the breakfast area. So we can then spec out the size of the breakfast area we've actually got, and then what we can say is we're actually going to plaster. We're going to do a complete room plaster, and then we're actually going to do a typical room renovation skim only, or a typical room plastering and insulation. So you decide on what it's going to be, and then that will then kind of estimate that size room up. And then that's that room plastered. So in this section we don't really need these. If you're doing kind of any structural beams and posts, you can put in kind of steel beams. You can kind of choose the type of steel beam that you're going to put in there. Universal columns, beams on equal angles, square hollow sections, rectangular hollow sections, flanges, flat plates, joists, circular hollow sections. So if you're putting in a kind of universal beam, you can put in the width and the height, and then that will give you the size of the beams in there. All right, and then you can kind of put the beams in, and you can tell what the actual width of the beam is. So if you are having to put in any kind of goalposty steels and stuff in, you can kind of add them. And the same goes for the if you're actually adding kind of steel posts, very, very similar. You can kind of put what type of steel post they are. And that's all that done. Okay. Walling sundries, if you're putting any kind of detail in there, if you're putting in chimney stacks, quoins, if you're actually cladding the walls with horizontal timbers, vertical timbers, or you might be doing a tile clad. You could be doing gas flue systems, dental course, so you just choose the one that you want, wall starters, and then kind of add them to your job. Renovation and demolition, you might be kind of knocking some walls down as you go. You could be doing a small area of an external wall, and then you can put the size, the height, the length, any kind of irregular kind of shapes or areas. If you're actually then stripping out the foundations, and then how many days you're going to need your breaker, your kind of mini digger, if you need it, require a JCB, if you need a dumper, you can kind of put those kind of items in there. Plumbing, that's actually more kind of taken up in the rooms, but you can add any kind of extras to this. If you're doing like underfloor heating, it does underfloor heating. If you're doing it into kind of joist section, if you're connecting it to a heating primary, you can kind of add that as well. Okay. Electrics, again, we kind of did this earlier. You could be putting in electric radiators, sockets, general electrical installation, putting in the smoke alarms, and then that will estimate your smoke alarms up. If you're doing any kind of fitting out, you could be putting down an engineered wood floor. Now it's asking me if I want to use the room. I'm not going to do it this time, but I can just put in the size of the section we want to do. So it's going to do any kind of additional areas in square meterage, fitting underlay, etc. And then we can kind of add that. So it does all fitting out. If you're doing roof floor tiling, sorry, domestic carpeting, maybe you're doing a bit more of a commercial job. Drainage and services, you can add the individual kind of items like soak aways, etc., inspection chambers, or just to kind of save time, you can actually add a group. If you're doing a foul drainage to a extension where you've got with a back inlet gully, one soil and vent pipe connected to two shallow access chambers, that will automatically kind of add those items very, very quickly. So you can see all the time this price is just kind of increasing the more we kind of put into the estimate. Guy I was speaking to today just does paving. So if you want to kind of do any kind of block paving, we can do, and then that will do the kind of block paving. So if you've got the extension, you've got a kind of a patio coming off it, you can do that as well. Landscaping, if you're doing any kind of decking, landscaping, panel fencing, turfing, might be kind of whacking the turf down. Medium-sized lawn type, and then you can put in the kind of size of it that you're going to be doing while you're there. So if you're not offering it now, it could be something that you do offer the client because you can price for it. It gives you, I guess, just that kind of edge over competitors that they might not be doing stuff that you are. So there's always the kind of putting kind of some extra kind of bells to yourself. So down here you've also got preliminaries and sundries. So a lot of builders I speak to don't ever think about putting any kind of travel costs. The other day I kind of spoke to a builder, had a local job, and he was probably doing about 1,600 miles across the job, and that was quite a local job. I also had a builder who was going to be on a job for around about 3 or 4 months, and he's probably doing about 80 miles a day. Well, the software kind of works out on a medium-sized van about, I think it's about 60 pence a mile. So if you're putting in, if you are going to do like say 6,000 miles across the job, you can kind of put your mileage into it. Any kind of parking fees for those that are kind of working inside London, congestion charges, they do kind of mount up. At the end of the day, you don't want it to kind of come out your own kind of business pocket. You want to kind of come out your estimating and your client see charges. We can also put in, don't want to stick that one in. Also as well, I'm going to put in site establishment. So we want to establish a medium-sized extension. Maybe the customer's turn around and says that we can use their bathroom. Not sure the likelihood of that, but you never know. So we can then kind of get a site cabin. If they turn around and say, actually, no, we're not going to let you use the bathroom, so we can apply a toilet now. Days JCB to clear the compound. Skip to clear the site. We might want to kind of stick an extra one in there. Maybe it's quite a lot of the takeout. And the size of the compound, we can say it's going to be, say, I don't know, 56 square meters or so compound to clear. We can also estimate for any insurance costs. Might want to kind of bump these up a little bit. Site security, health and safety costs, 750 quid. So we can then apply that to the job. Also as well, site appraising the site, scaffolding going up. Maybe you're kind of doing the design costs, cleaning of the site, obviously. And again, if you're cleaning the site, you can be upfront with the client. We will make sure that the site is kind of cleaned and stuff afterwards. It's all kind of part of the job. and then that's all kind of taken care of. And same for the scaffolding. Do a medium single story scaffold. So I hope you all kind of get the point. It really does kind of work from top to bottom. You go through each section, price them all up. I mean, me even kind of chatting away as I have done this evening. It's explaining everything. We've probably done that in probably started this section about 7:30. So just over half an hour, we've pretty much kind of got a running cost there of £47,756.65 at this stage. Any subcontract items? Maybe they want a kitchen fitted, item used for fitting kitchen, fitting and installing the kitchen, whatever you want to name it, and maybe they've got an eye on one that's about £10,000, and then we can say where is that going to be part of the, probably going to be joinery, second fix maybe. So we can then kind of put 10k on there just for the fitted kitchen they've got their eye on. Also as well, you can actually add extra templates to the job. So say we're actually doing a garage at the same time, we could do the estimate on the extension, and then we can drop in a garage job. So we can actually do an extra kind of template onto this job, and then we've got a total output of both projects. Okay, right, so now we've got a kind of price there. I'm just going to go back to my main estimate now. Again, I've left something in that has me price, so it is giving me a bit of a warning, but I'm not going to kind of look at it. So we've got a running cost there of 57,756.65. Profit and overhead, looking at 17,326. So that's a 10% overhead and 20% markup. So the total job to the client, you're looking at 75,000 before VAT. And these are the kind of estimating calculators here. And this is actually telling me where the most expensive kind of parts of the job, and I can go in and kind of check it through if I want to kind of open it up and just kind of check it. Then from an output, we want to get the quote to the client. So on the left hand side, we can go straight into the quotation for the estimate. So this is my document. I've already uploaded my company logo, so that's already onto my I saved it in my library. On the right hand side, I'm going to include that inflation when we present it to the client. Also as well, we're actually charging 20% VAT. If I want to change the fonts, I can do. I can change if I don't want to use kind of Arial, or you've got a specific kind of format you want your quotation in, you can kind of change that. So I'm just going to add that kind of inflation in there. You'll see there we haven't got any kind of client's details. I should have shown you under the template. There's a section there. You can also put in, which I didn't actually show you. Sorry, just while it goes back in. Right, so on this kind of top section here, we've got the client's details, which I could have filled in. And that will all be then kind of mapped onto the that's just kind of mapping it over from a previous job, because it's remembered who they were. And also as well, any kind of assumptions you want to put onto the quotation, and any kind of omissions you want to kind of put on there as well. Just take them off. So we can put assumptions and omissions onto the quote. You can also put in any kind of provisional sums onto the quote as well with a cost, and you can also assign them to a location and also to a build phase. if you need to. So going back to my kind of written quotes, go back to my main estimate. Again, it's telling me I have got a section there that requires me kind of filling in. And that's my kind of document there. So by going down here now, we've got our, yeah, it's filled in the details there from when we put them in. And then we've got this kind of covering letter. On the letter on the left-hand side, you can go into that letter and reword it, put your own kind of stamp on there, put your own language, how you want to kind of present it. And then we've got a kind of a list of the summary. So what that's doing, you remember the job was 75. Well, now we've kind of added that inflation. So it's actually now put extra cost on the inflation plus the VAT, price to the clients looking at 94,616. Now, I know you're going to say, well, we need to kind of justify that price, and the software does that. I mean, once we start going through the quotation, we can look at each section, and then what we can then start kind of demonstrating to the client are these are the materials we're actually using. Now, a lot of builders say to me, well, I don't really kind of want to put that much detail on there. Some builders actually want more detail on there. So if I go into the build phases on the left-hand side, I can kind of pick and choose how much detail I actually want. If I want to show all resources and I want to show quantities on my quote, then I can do. So now we've actually got how long, etc., to demolish walls. That's going to be a very kind of detailed quotation for them. How many weeks we're going to have the site cabin, how many skips and stuff to actually establish the site, and where you're actually using the customer's toilet. So you can kind of do that very, very quickly on this kind of right hand side. Now, a lot of builders say, well, we don't really want to kind of show too much detail, so maybe we want to kind of take some of this off, and we can also kind of take out the images as well if you want to, and we can even kind of take out the description, or might want to take out the build phase kind of cost. So you can kind of pick and choose how you want to present it, whatever you're kind of happy with, what your client's happy with. You can kind of make those changes to the quotation quite quickly. What you can also do is down here is the acceptance of the estimate. So this section here, you can also determine how many copies you actually want printed off. So that will give a copy to each party so they can check it through. And also as well your T's and C's. And again, you can see there, copy and paste your T's and C's. And once they're kind of in there, they'll be kind of saved there for the next time you do an estimate. There's also another couple of sections down here. The software also allows for you to kind of create stage payments for the client. So if they do want kind of terms, that's absolutely fine. But if you do have terms, then obviously we need to kind of take a deposit. We need to kind of take a deposit on this particular date. It's going to be starting quite soon, and the deposit we're going to be taking is going to be 15%. So we've already got the deposit up front from them. Because what happens if you don't take a deposit and we leave that to zero, we do have a kind of a cash flow report. Now our kind of cash flow is actually telling us at some stage in the future we're going to be out of pocket ourselves as a builder. We're going to have to kind of cover these kind of costs. So we need to kind of make sure that if we're taking a 15% deposit, it means that our cash flow report is always going to be in plus rather than negative kind of value. And also apply that kind of inflation. You can also change as well if you want to kind of bill at the start of end of each build phase, or you might be billing every month. However you want to kind of do it, really. And we can say the billing start date is going to be the 1st. And then we've got a kind of a stage payment for that. Okay. From an output point of view, just to kind of finish off, you've got these kind of data reports. I mentioned you do have a report in here, which is going to be our materials order schedule. And this will then kind of produce you a schedule based on the material, how long it's going to take to order. So we've actually got a materials order schedule just there. So that will be telling when you need to order your material by, because it's going to be required for this kind of section, this build phase. Okay. So probably coming to an end of the demo, probably been a little bit over, but that's hopefully kind of given you a bit of a kind of an oversight into Estimator Express and what it can do. I mean, there's certainly kind of extras and stuff to kind of look at maybe for another time, or when we're kind of chatting to you guys on a one-to-one basis. But as I said, if you do have any kind of questions, I am going to kind of hang back for the next 5 minutes or so. But if you do have any questions, do please use the kind of GoToMeeting kind of panel to ask away, and I'll hopefully kind of answer them before we sign off this evening. But yeah, thanks very much for attending and giving up some of your precious time to have a look at the software. I think it's definitely a positive kind of step to start kind of looking at this software. It does help. It's been proven to help. It's just about kind of using it and kind of getting it integrated into your business. But as I said, I'm going to kind of hang around for the next 5 minutes. If you do have a question, do fire away and I'll get it answered. If not, then quite happy you can go back to your evening, have some tea or a cup of tea or a beer. I'm sure we'll be chatting soon. So I'll answer some questions hopefully in a minute. Okay, so I'm going to kind of wrap up, guys. As I said, thank you very much for attending this evening. I'm sure we'll catch up over the next few days, answer any questions you have over the phone. So have a good evening. Speak soon.